magic sparks. And you might come pass across the 6'4" chick flinging all by spots with a shout. You thought that's Candace Palm. She may be a lady, KB. Past the Christy, cool as the AC. The ice princess, don't try to fit this. She driving like a line in the spot. She take risks. Wnba sparking. Loving the best cause they all say hard. Tonight we going hard.
Well, good evening, WNBA and LA Sparks fans, and welcome in to the LA Sparks 365 Network, your 24/7, 365 comprehensive home of the WNBA and your two-time WNBA champion, Los Angeles Sparks, back with you folks here on May 7th, 2015, and welcome into tonight's edition of WNBA 365. We have some new news and some old news to touch on here on this solo show for the evening, only one show of the night, and for the third straight night, a solo broadcast team. Cal McClure joining you folks here from Studio 171 in San Diego, California. Hopefully the weather is nice wherever you may be, as finally for once we're expecting some rain here in Southern California. As you may know, with our pretty harsh drought conditions here, we are kind of in need and a little bit desperate for some wet weather here, and hopefully we'll get it sometime very soon. Even though the Sparks season, folks, has come and gone, and the 2015 season begins in less than a month now. Stay connected with the Sparks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and on LinkedIn by liking the Sparks on Facebook at facebook.com/Los Angeles Sparks. Follow the Sparks on Twitter and Instagram. Their handle is at LA_Sparks. Pin the Sparks on Pinterest at pinterest.com/SparksWNBA. Subscribe to the Sparks on YouTube for exclusive video content from the team at youtube.com/user/the Los Angeles Sparks. Or connect with the Sparks on your professional network on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Los Angeles Sparks. Now, again, folks, said that we had some new news and some old news. Now, some new news that finally broke today that we were kind of waiting on to see what was going to transpire. We heard about what this person had said about, I'm going to sign eventually, but I need to find someone else to play with. But finally today, coming to the forefront, the Minnesota Lynx today announcing the team has re-signed forward Maya Moore to a multi-year contract, and of course, per team policy, terms of the contract cannot be disclosed to the media. Moore, who's a 4-year veteran, originally selected by the Lynx with the first overall pick back in the 2011 WNBA draft, started all 34 games for Minnesota last season, running her consecutive games played streak to 136 consecutive games played, averaging a career high and franchise record 24 points per game and a career best 8.1 rebounds and 3.4 assists while playing in 34.7 minutes per game. Lynx Executive VP Roger Griffith says, quote, "We are thrilled that Maya will continue her career with the Minnesota Lynx. Maya has proven herself to be one of the best players in the WNBA in her young career, and her continued success and leadership will be great for our franchise moving forward," close quote. During her 4 seasons, Minnesota has made 3 WNBA Finals appearances, earning 2 championships in 2011 and 2013, and 4 consecutive trips to the Western Conference Finals. Since Moore was drafted, the Lynx have collected 25 or more regular season wins in 4 consecutive years, becoming the first WNBA team to accomplish that feat. The 105 victories in that span ties the 2000 through 2003 LA Sparks for the league's most ever in a 4-year stretch. Maya Moore's quote in the press release states, quote, "I'm excited to continue to compete for championships with the Lynx organization. It's been a real privilege to work with some of the best teammates, coaches, staff, and ownership these past 4 years, and I'm looking forward to many more," close quote. The WNBA's reigning most valuable player, Moore, opened 2014 by scoring 135 points in her first 4 games, the most prolific 4-game scoring run in league history. She paced the league in scoring at 23.9 points per game, with the 3rd highest average in WNBA history, and went on to finish the regular season with a league record 12 games of 30-plus points. The 2011 Rookie of the Year has appeared in all 136 games, all starts with Minnesota, averaging 18 points, 6 rebounds, and she also appeared in 29 playoff games, averaging 17 points per game in 32 minutes per contest. Maya Moore's notable awards include the 2014 MVP award, a 2-time champion in 2011 and 2013, the 2013 WNBA Finals MVP, 2-time first-team All-WNBA, a 3-time All-Star, and, of course, winning multiple awards with USA Basketball. Now, folks, we kind of knew it was going to happen, but there was a few rumors and rumblings about, there's talk of, of course we had the big story blow up during draft day where, hey, we've got not talk about, Sylvia Fowles being traded somewhere, and there was talk of her possibly going to Minnesota. So I think that sort of, it's sort of like, why did it take so long? Now, again, we knew that there were some rumblings, again, of, there's possible talk of, Sylvia Fowles possibly going to Minnesota, which would have added, a fourth key component to that team. But the links are already loaded enough, folks, between Maya, Simone Augustus, and Lindsay Whalen, that not a surprise. And this is something that, because Albert Lee from switchbill.com called me earlier today and was sort of explaining this core deal. Now, some people were asking about the core deal, the core player deal earlier in the offseason when they were talking about, will Candace Parker be dealt or will she ever be released? Folks, what happens here, and this is what Albert Lee told me, and this is regarding the superstars like Maya, CP, Diana Taurasi, so on and so forth, is once a player is drafted to a specific team, a la Maya in 2011 to Minnesota, they get the rights to the player for the first 4 years of the contract. After those 4 years end, then once the 4 years do end, they still cannot go anywhere, because even after the 4 years end, the team, once the fourth year of the contract ends, they still own the rights to that player, which means that that player can only negotiate with that specific team that they're with until they can make up their mind about being a free agent or if they get waived or cut, so on and so forth. So, again, I don't think frankly, no one should be surprised that Maya Moore is staying. I mean, when you can build that resume in only 4 seasons where you won a championship in your rookie season, then won another one in 2013, you made 4 straight appearances in the conference finals. Why would you, there's an old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I think we all see here that, yes, it's not broke in Minnesota. They've had a great run. I mean, there's nothing to discount, nothing to take away from how great they have played since 2011. I mean, it's been a complete whirlwind of how the Lynx were, a startup team in 1999, kind of slow getting out of the gate, and they have, 3 tremendous superstars on their team, and all they've done is win, and do more winning. And I even think, though, that as much as we could have said it was Diana or maybe Candace Parker as MVP last season, not when you can throw up 135 points in 4 games. I mean, last season may not be duplicated by anybody for a while. I think seeing what Maya did last season, that cannot be touched. I mean, if you can, score 135 points in 4 games, and score 24 points per game, third highest average in league history, and above all, 12 games with 30 or more points. That is what, fits the MVP tag of your sport. You have to have, the stats. You have to have, those numbers, backing up your theory as to why they're MVP. Now, yes, Diana Taurasi could have because Phoenix had a better season. Candace Parker could have because, one, she was a defending MVP, but also was the lone player that was really functioning well for LA last season. Now, I'm sure there was other candidates, but I think, though, that when you can throw up that many points in 4 games, 12 games in a row of 30 or 30-plus points, you're doing something way better than everyone else. So, obviously, good to see, though, too, that Maya Moore will be remaining with Minnesota for the next few years again, as they will look for their 3rd title in franchise history. Now, folks, going back to what we had discussed the past 2 shows here, regarding the New York Liberty, again, bringing in former Detroit Piston and longtime friend of James Dolan, Isaiah Thomas, in as their new part owner and team president. Now, folks, as I've mentioned, but again, Alan Barkoff, who has done a fantastic job, relayed me a story today from his local ABC affiliate in WABC in New York City. The article here reads, and the headline here reads, WNBA Prez caught off guard by Isaiah Thomas' announcement. This article posted about an hour ago from Vegas goes as follows here from WABC TV in New York. The WNBA has been thrown into the national conversation about domestic violence in sports, and now it's facing a decision involving sexual harassment. The league is currently reviewing the hiring of Isaiah Thomas, once the subject of a sexual harassment lawsuit, as president of the New York Liberty, an announcement that caught the WNBA president off guard. The WNBA was already immersed in a domestic dispute involving All-Stars Brittany Griner and Glory Johnson, who were arrested 2 weeks ago after assaulting each other at their home in Maricopa County, Arizona. How the Premier Women's Sports League handles both is drawing interest. WNBA President Laurel J. Ritchie told the Associated Press in a phone interview Wednesday night that Thomas's hiring was, quote, first and foremost a team decision, but there's ultimate responsibility with the league, and that rests in my office, close quote. Now, if you folks do not know the whole story here about Isaiah Thomas, here you go. MSG employee Anusha Brown Saunders brought a lawsuit in 2007 alleging that Thomas sexually harassed her. The suit cost MSG $11.5 million, but the NBA Hall of Famer maintained his innocence and was never found personally liable. Ritchie said she was surprised by the Liberty's announcement and that the league wasn't given much advance notice. Thomas also was given an ownership stake in the team, but Ritchie said the WNBA hasn't received a complete application yet. Ritchie also goes on to say that, quote, the announcement came out Tuesday. We're less than 48 hours into the process. I'd say both on behalf of the league and personally, I'm in the process of gathering the information. Ultimately, this is a decision in terms of ownership that is a board-level decision. I will participate in that discussion, close quote. The WNBA Board of Governors has to approve Thomas's ownership application. Ritchie goes on to further say, once we receive that application, our bidding process will begin. We have read the reports in the news, and that will be a part of our bidding process, absolutely. We have an annual meeting in December. The rest of our meetings are 80 HOC meetings. This would be an 80 HOC meeting, close quote. While the Thomas hiring is new, the domestic violence case is not. Griner, a center for the Phoenix Mercury, and Johnson, a 64 with Tulsa, were both arrested on April 22nd on suspicion suspicion of assault after their fight. The 6'8" Griner entered into a diversion agreement which she would plead guilty to disorderly conduct and attend 26 weeks of DV counseling. All charges would be dropped if she completes her counseling. Ritchie told ESPN's Jane McMunis on Thursday that the league's investigation into the situation is, quote, nearly complete. Griner talked with the league officials last week, a person familiar with the situation to the AP. The person spoke to the AP on condition of anonymity, but because it's a personal matter and the investigation is still pending. The league has the option to fine, suspend, or even terminate the contracts of Johnson and Griner. Ritchie goes on to further say on this that my hope is by the time our season starts, we will have done the due diligence on both fronts so that when our players are on the court and our season's begun, we are focused on what I think is incredible talent and terrific entertainment in the WNBA, close quote. WNBA players are waiting to see what action the league takes. Diana Taurasi, who had a DUI arrest in 2009, it was suspended 2 games by the league, goes on to say, quote, Brittany will learn from this and grow. There are things that happen in life, but domestic violence is unacceptable. There are so many questions that the league has to answer and set a precedent for, close quote. So, folks, you got both heavy doses of the 2 biggest stories I've talked about the past 2 nights here on LAS 365. Now, we'll start with the Isaiah Thomas rumblings. That, okay, there is some evidence here. We now know that there is evidence here up against Isaiah Thomas. Now we know that, yes, there was a 07 incident involving an employee of MSG who pretty much owns everything at the Garden between the Rangers, the Liberty, the Knicks, plus their local TV station as well for the games, is, yes, okay, now we know that there is something there. But now it's sort of like what I brought up last night is what will the Board of Governors do about Isaiah Thomas's application to become part owner of the franchise. Now, we know that last year that it was a very quick process to get Magic Johnson and Mark Walter approved to buy the Los Angeles Sparks when they were down and buried basically last year. But now we've got some risky business here in regards to the Isaiah Thomas situation. In my view, is we really have to see what the 12 owners plus the league president will do. Now, Chris and I were talking a few nights ago about this issue, as you may have heard me talk about the past 2 nights, is I'm not really sure if this is going to work. I simply say that only because, can the WNBA really, can they really afford to bring in Isaiah Thomas into the WNBA when we know that there's baggage, but also that they are facing a problem or a dilemma as well with the Brittany Griner, Glory Johnson situation. Now, I was talking also to Shorty Mama 24 earlier today. She had a little bit of a idea, or she said in a little bit of a tweet statement today. Her tweets read today at first tweet at 2:37 p.m. Local time. She says, NY Media and everyone else is ripping TF out of James Dolan for the Isaiah Thomas hiring for the Libs. Her next tweet goes on to read this, and this is her thoughts here at 2:40 local time. She says, ultimately, I think the W can't really stop the hiring of him becoming team president, but the Board of Gov can block him becoming co-owner. So obviously, it's going to be one or the other. Either Isaiah is going to be able to be team president, or he's going to be blocked and he won't be allowed to be part owner of the franchise. So there's one deal. Now getting back, folks, to what we've also been talking about as well is the ongoing dilemma with Brittany Griner and Glory Johnson. Now, ESPN reported today that the league investigation is nearly complete. Now, punishment, I think, for the WNBA to set the bar here on how to properly punish athletes for DV, they have got to drop Thor's hammer on both Griner and Johnson. Now, I'm not going to go I am not going to say terminate their contracts, because that is something that you just don't want to do. Now, terminating the contracts, I think, is a really, really big step going forward. I mean, I would be fine with a multiple game suspension plus, some or a fine. But if you want to go as far as terminating their contracts, though, with their teams, that's unfair. I think that that's something that you can't do, because, if you do that, you're going to start losing, fan interest, specifically in Phoenix, because if you lose Brittany Griner with the Mercury, who's left other than Diana and everyone else available? Because I think though that most people, myself included, would go to see a Mercury game this season to see Brittany Griner dominate and slam dunk and do what she does best on the floor. But I don't think that I don't think you go that far. I don't think you terminate their contracts. It's possible, but I don't think that Laurel Richie's going to go to those levels. Simply because, you got to think about the fans here too. I mean, if in fact you do terminate Griner and Johnson, but specifically terminate Griner from Phoenix, you're going to have another dilemma on your hands. So I think that if I was to hand down a punishment, I'd say it's a mandatory, or not mandatory, but it's I'm going to say, okay, at least in my theory, the punishment should be 2 to 4 game suspension and some type of fine. That's about all I can really say, is a fine in some magnitude and a suspension in some very small shape, form, or size. I think that's what you do, and you do not want to terminate contracts either, so I don't know if that is the right thing to do with this. We do have a comment here from Love MJ32, a commented saying 10-game suspension for Griner and Johnson. Okay, 10 games may be a good idea. I think that's something that could play into a factor. I think 10 games. I think in a 34-game season it might be a bit much, but that would be Thor's hammer. Is you say, 5-10 games you're suspended. But I think you have to. But I think though you have to throw a fine in too. I think if you want to really set a standard for how athletes are punished for domestic violence, you say, lengthy suspension plus a hefty fine. I think that's what you have to say for that. But looking at looking further here is, Laurel Richie. I mean, my goodness. I mean, ever since Donna Ornder left the league, Laurel's had her hands full the past couple of years as league president. She had to deal with the Spark situation in 2013, last offseason, and now you've got to deal with domestic violence, plus a new owner coming in that also has a sexual harassment strike on his stat line. So obviously we'll see what the league does. And again, I think we're all very intrigued and very, very interested to see what is Laurel Richie going to do. Now, again, I know that I posed the question last night on Twitter. We'll do it again here on Twitter at LA Sparks 365 or at Calimac3. in your mind, what is the most justifiable punishment for Brittany Griner and Glory Johnson? Is it a suspension? Is it a fine? Or is it even a possible contract termination? Let us know on Twitter. We'll get to your comments off air and perhaps back and also back here probably next week as well. So again, the question of the night once more again, folks, is what is the most justifiable punishment for Brittany Griner and Glory Johnson for their domestic violence arrest back last month again? Is it a suspension, fine, or is it possible contract termination? Let us know on Twitter. We'll get to your comments and your responses probably next week. Now, folks, I can confirm for you as you get ready to head out of here, for the night and for the weekend. I can certainly tell you what that now we can officially confirm, stamp of approval, folks. We do have our first LAS 365 host meet and greet night locked up and ready to go. So if you are ready to throw the date on your calendar, folks, the first one for right now is scheduled and is set in stone for July 22nd when the Sparks take on the New York Liberty at 7:30 p.m. Come on out and hang out with the one half of the broadcast team here from LAS 365. We will again be out there on July 22nd when the Sparks face off with the New York Liberty at 7:30 p.m. And we would love to see all you great fans out there that have watched the program, or if you have know who I am in some fashion, come on out and hang with us and enjoy a great game between LA and New York. Again, that is a 7:30 tip-off for LAS 365 host meet and greet night against the New York Liberty. With that, folks, again, we will get as we do get ready to head out of here for the night. We will again pose our question one more time. But again, folks, the question of the night again once more is: what is the most justifiable punishment for the WNBA to give to Glory Johnson and Brittany Griner? Is it a suspension, fine, or contract termination? Let us know on Twitter again at LA Sparks 365 or at Calimac3, and we will use your responses next Wednesday back here on the program. With that, folks, we got through a lot again, but again, hopefully we will get back. But hopefully next Wednesday we'll have our regular broadcast team back in here next Wednesday night. Until then, folks, have a safe night. Drive home safely. Thank you all for stopping by and joining us here. And good night now. This has been the LA Sparks 365 Network. We are Sparks. We are LA, and we are the WNBA. We'll see you folks back here next Wednesday, right back here on your home for the LA Sparks and WNBA. This is LAS 365. See you folks next Wednesday. Bye-bye.